Okay, what we are looking at in the second snow day makeup lesson is the next probability lesson, and that deals with what we call a permutation, and we'll define that in just a moment. But first, our main goal or objective will be to find the number of permutations of an object. What is a permutation? A permutation is an arrangement of objects in a specific order. Keyword specific. You'll hear me say that a permutation is when the order matters. When the order matters. A linear permutation is when the objects are arranged in a row. So think about, you have 4 books. How many ways can you lay out or arrange those 4 books that you have? Finally, the next definition that we need to discuss is what we call a factorial. This is written as an exclamation point, but it's read as n factorial. And what this means is that you are multiplying that number times the number before times the number before all the way down to 1. So for example, let's say we have 4 factorial. This would mean 4 times 3 times 2 times 1, which is 24. Okay. On your graphing calculators, there is a way. You have a factorial button on your calculator. For your graphing calculators, you have to go under your math button. And then under math, you on the top scroll over to PRB, which is probability. And then factorial is number 4. So to do that on your calculator for factorial, you would first in the main screen hit 4, and then you would go to the probability column, select factorial, and then enter. All right, so let's talk about how to find permutation. It's going to involve the factorial. So the number of permutation of n objects is given by the number of permutations of n objects is given by n factorial. So back to my example, how many arrangements of 4 books can you have? Well, that would be 4 times 3 times 2 times 1. So there would be 24 different ways that you can arrange 4 books. Another example, on a baseball team, 9 players are designated as the starting lineup. Before a game, the manager announces the order in which the 9 players will bat. How many different orders are possible? So, first of all, I want to point out why this is a permutation. If you know much about baseball, you do understand that the way starting lineups are made is specific, and if you bat first versus third, that's a big difference. So the order here does matter. So because we're using all 9 players, the number of lineups that we can have is 9 factorial. Use your calculator, and that's 362,880. If you want to do 9 times 8 times 7 all the way down to times 1 to get that, you could do that as well. All right. So now what we are going to do is not use all of our objects like we did in this example. We had 9 objects, which in this case was people, but we don't always have to use all of the objects we have. So the number of permutation of n objects, that's the total number of objects you have, taken r at a time, so that's how many we're using, is denoted by NPR. There is a formula for this. NPR, that means we have the total number of objects and then the number we're taking is n factorial over n minus r factorial. Now, we also have a button on our calculators for this as well. So really, the only time you need that formula is if you don't have your graphing calculator with you. To find that on your calculator, go back to Math, your Math button, go over to Probability, which is over on the very right-hand side of that top column, and then you will see NPR as number 2. The way that you enter this in your calculator is you would put the value of n first on your screen, then use that button, and then you would put the value of r on your screen, and that would calculate it for you. And we'll do that in just a moment. So, for example, find the number of ways to listen to 3 CDs from a selection of 5. So that means our total number, n, is 5. The number we're picking or choosing is 3. Again, you could use the formula up here if you want, but because we have these calculators, we might as well use them. So on your calculator on the main screen, type 5, and then go Math, over to Probability, down to number 2, hit Enter, so you have then this on your screen, and then type in 3, and hit Enter, and we should be getting 60. So there are 60 ways to listen to 3 CDs out of a total of 5. All right, let's look at the next example. 10 children are sitting in their classroom ready to line up for lunch. Find the number of permutations for each situation. So the total number, or the value of n in all of this, is 10. And then in each example, the number that we're choosing is going to be different. So in the first one, all 10 children are lining up, so we are choosing all 10. You could do this 2 different ways. You could either just do 10 factorial, or you could say 10 permutations choosing 10. Both of those will give you the same answer, which is 3,628,800. So quite a few ways that 10 kids can line up. In part B, we are this time out of the 10 choosing 5. So 10 choosing 5. So again, just use your calculator. On the main screen, type 10, go Math, over to PRB, number 2, and then 5 gives you 30,240. Go ahead and try this last one on your own. So we're choosing 3 students to line up. All right, if you tried this on your own, we should have had that 10 permutations choosing 3 is 720. So what, let's look at the next page. So now what we're doing is looking at permutations with identical objects. So this time we will have some objects that are repeated. To do this, we are going to take the number of permutations basically over the number of repeaters factorial. So in the first example, it says find the number of permutations of the letters of the word permutation. So we're focused on the letters in that word. All right, the first thing that we have to do is count the number of letters in that word. Count the number of letters in this word. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So our value of n is 11. That's how many we choose from. And then we need to count how many identical objects we have. So we have, let's see, a T there and a T there. So we have 2 identical objects. So what we would do with our formula, n factorial over r factorial, we have 11 factorial over 2 factorial to account for the repeaters. You can do all of that on your calculator. This gives you, oh goodness, 19,958,400. If you would have multiple repeaters in the bottom, you would just have multiple factorials on the bottom, okay? All right, next example. Ronald is organizing sports equipment for the PE room. He has 15 balls that he must place in a line. So he has a total of 15 balls. That's your value of n. And how many ways can he line up 6 footballs? So our first repeater is that he has 6 footballs. He has 2 soccer balls. So the second repeater is that he has 2 soccer balls. He has 4 kickballs and 3 basketballs. So the third repeater is 4. The fourth repeater is 3. So a whole bunch of repeaters here. It's still n factorial over the repeater factorial. Value of n is 15, and then we just have to account for all of those repeaters. So 6 factorial times 2 factorial times 4 factorial times 3 factorial. You might want to do a little bit of work in between here in the final answer. You might want to go ahead and calculate what the denominator is equal to, but when all is said and done, we should have 6,306,300. All right, the very last thing that we are going to look at is a circular permutation. So this is when you are arranging things in a circle. There are n minus 1 factorial number of permutations. So in how many ways can seats be chosen for 12 couples? And I'm assuming that each couple counts as 1 on a Ferris wheel that has 12 double seats. So a Ferris wheel is circular. So my value of n is 12. So circular permutation, I take n minus 1 factorial. Well, if n is 12, this is 12 minus 1 factorial, which is 11 factorial, which is 39,916,800. Be sure that you know how to do these computations on your calculator. If you have questions about using your calculator, please come see me. All right, finally, a football team takes the huddle in a circular formation with the quarterback in the center. So essentially the quarterback's in the middle. He's not part of the circular permutation. How many ways can the 10 players form the huddle? Well, because we're taking out the quarterback, our value of n is really only 9. So the 9 other players are in the circular permutation. So 9 minus 1 factorial, which is 8 factorial, is 40,320.